the program today will be to meet some of the people that were so generous with their time, manufacturers, suppliers, also brands who contributed to the learnings of this report. It was a qualitative social science report. And to hear from them, firstly, a brief introduction, 1 minute introduction about their organizations, which is nearly impossible, but to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that they and their organizations face. And then what we'll do is we'll quickly watch the 18-minute Regenerative Fashion Futures film, and then we'll break for tea, and then we'll come back and we'll be talking to the same speakers, plus one of my favorite NGOs, Soil Association, Sarah Compton, who's going to be talking to us about some exciting things as well. But we're going to then focus on what those regenerative practices and those solutions are, and how do we need to see the industry change in order to get there. And we know that that's not just buying practice, it's wrapping it around in a legislative framework that works. We know that we could be doing things around the EPR, the de minimis, to prevent all this ultra-fast fashion parcelling coming into the UK. Having Brexited, we're not part of the EU legislation. We also know that finance is very important. Who is going to finance this green transition? So we're going to be answering a lot of those questions here today. And then, as I say, we're going to be breaking, for those of us here at Baked Wells, we're going to have some nice snacks and networking. There is a Q&A, sorry, I beg your pardon. Before that networking, there is a Q&A, and please, we have a great team on Baked Wells looking at the Q&A. If you have questions, please ask those questions. And we're really sorry that you can't be with us here to enjoy nice snacks, but please make yourself a cup of tea in 40 minutes. So I would like to first invite Shailesh Patel. Shailesh and I met when he was a very, very young man, and he runs RDFC, which is an organic regenerative fair trade farming group based in Gujarat. And I'm wondering how we bring him into the room. He's in Gujarat in India. And Shailesh, I wonder, could we invite you into the room to speak to us?
Very much, Safia, and everybody for invite me for this one of the big occasion, and make your report, and I hope it will be definitely useful for everybody. So I am a Shailesh Patel, work in a SPO, small producer organizations. So I work actually called RDFC, that the name of the company means Rapper and Dhagandra Farmer Producer Company, just like a cooperative. So all the farmers members are owner of the company. So I am looking that company as a CEO, and mainly we have about 780 small producers, means who grows the cotton and other crops, and 450 farmers are new enrolled for the in conversion. So quite a small organization where we work since last more than about 10 years, and mainly our farmer grows the cotton and other food grains. So this is a background of our organization, and we are certified with the fair trade organic. That is a standard normally we have used in our programs. Mainly, if I talk about the challenges, there are there are a number of challenges which we are faced in organization level and at the producers level, and mainly I can say that is one of the big challenge we are facing now. It is climate change. That is one of the big, because there is the uncertainty of the rain and heat, and last 2-3 years we have observed that there is a it is a very huge impact on the field, and same that impact comes on the farmers. So there is a not means earlier it was not like that. The rain and what the atmosphere is almost in the same condition, but last few years that was huge changes, and that is a impact on the field. So that is one of the challenge. Another challenge is due to the crop pattern is changing, and due to the climatic condition, the productions that is impacted, and that impact is comes on the prices and the crop. So I can say means that is a uncertainty of the price of the cotton. Means last 3 years, if we have observed, that is a huge up and down, and always farmer has a worry when prices will be goes up, and when they have to sell the cotton in the market. That is a second challenges. And there are also challenges about the scarcity of the water in our area. So definitely there is a number of activity which we are supporting to the farmers to cater that. But even that, if it is less water, so again that is a problem with the farmers to get the proper production and the quality productions. So that is also one of the challenges which we are facing. So kind of that there is a number of challenges we are facing. So what means we when we work with the farmers, we have collectively, and the process as a democratic process, we have find out the solution which is currently facing the challenges, and there are number of solutions which we are created in within the organization.
Shailesh, sorry, before you go on to talk about some of the of the solutions that you're involved with, I'd just like to sum up on the challenges. So I understand that climate change is impacting the farmers enormously.
Yes.
And that they cannot store the cotton when it's ready, because often the unseasonal rains are then destroying the cotton, so they have to sell it straight away. And that when we visited and also captured in the video is farmers growing other crops in order to protect the cotton, like castor, for example. And then, one would think if it rains a lot, like you were explaining a couple of days ago, 6 inches, 4 inches of rain in one go, that would be adding to the groundwater. But very often this is collecting straight into the river and then straight into the sea. It is not going into groundwater. So some of these real problems. So thank you. If you wouldn't mind, just if we could stop you just there for the moment. So I'd like to now come to the fundamentals of the research were to look at first low impact materials, the regenerative organic low impact materials of the cotton side, but also to look at progressive factories, and then also to look at craft as part of the solution through this just transition. So I'd like to come on now to invite Marius of Continental Clothing to talk a bit about your brotherhood, really, your very close relationship with Sri Santosh Garments in Tirupur in southern India. Could you tell us a little bit about the factory there, what it looks like, why you started partnering so deeply with them, and what are the challenges that you face? Because I was shocked going there how many factories were closed, machinery up for sale. There was a real sense of recession, actually.
Yes, hello. I work for Continental Clothing Company. We've been running for 25 years. In 2007, we launched a brand called Earth Positive, which is still going. It's now our main brand. And with it, we established a new supply chain in India. And that's when we came across Sri Santosh. We now, the company now is run by the second generation. The parents and uncles are now sort of slightly on the sidelines, and the younger generation is running it on a day-to-day basis. I guess the fundamental point here is that good relationships with your supply chain that then allow you to implement improvements and to progress with whatever you want to do.
And you're also using Gujarati organic cotton, aren't you?
We started buying from Gujarat in 2007, and we're still buying from the same people from the same people in the Surendranagar,
And that's
primarily from the Surendra.
Ceminter India Organics, isn't it? One of the,
It is,
the projects that
yes, it is
covered in
organic
this.
cotton only. We only use organic cotton. That was the starting point. And of course, then ethical, whatever it meant at that point, you know, but social audits and labor standards, etc. We also looked at climate change, which in 2007 was sort of, you know, like down in, you know, deep down in heavy papers. Nobody was really much talking about it, and obviously there was more denial than not. And we worked with Carbon Trust in 2008, calculated the carbon footprint, reduced it by 90% in 2009, got certified by Carbon Trust on that reduction, and continued ever since. But of course, the whole sustainability, which now has become sort of more of a regenerative term, but the same thing, the sort of the progression is an ever evolving agenda. And if you want to evolve, you know, you can't be jumping from supplier to supplier. You have to have a long-term good relationship. Trust is essential, and obviously that takes time to build. Understanding projects take a long time to implement. Very often you can't implement them immediately, fully. You have to get there gradually, and that takes time. Living wage, you know, takes 5 years to actually implement, because you have to do it incrementally. And whatever else you do, you know, detox to zero detox to zero took 3 years to implement.
Wow. Yeah. And you've also the Sri Santosh Garment story, that of generating a surplus of renewable energy and selling 28% back to the national grid. That's quite extraordinary, isn't it? How did that investment come into place?
This was it. We wanted to, in 2007, we knew we wanted organic, we wanted ethical, we wanted environmentally friendly, let's say. So, you know, minimizing pollution, water management, etc. But climate change, carbon footprint was really the thing. That really was, you know, the question of where do we actually begin? And we started by doing carbon footprinting of the product from, you know, the entire life cycle. And then we noticed that, okay, there were clear hotspots along the supply chain. And one of the biggest ones was spinning, because the most energy intensive. And, you know, there is very little you can do about it. You know, either you want to be industrial or you want to go back to hand spinning, you know.
Some of us do.
I know you do. I know you do. But also we wanted to make it to test whether this was viable on a large commercial scale. We knew there were some projects that were doing, you know, tries, but they were very much sort of a cottage home industry. We wanted to see, okay, well, can we make it happen? Can we produce 1 million t-shirts, sell them profitably in a open, competitive market, and at the same time, you know, show best practice?
And you have.
We have, yes. We make about 12 million a year now.
Not profit though.
12 million pieces of t-shirts.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
Yes.
So thank you, and you'll see more about this in the film, and it really is brought to life with a drone. I'd like to now invite Sri Rangarajan from Dibella Sustainably Crafted Clothing to join us from India.
Good evening, everybody. And first of all, Safia, thank you very much for you and for the team for inviting me. And I'm quite excited to be part of this, event. And I'm sure the report as well as the video will justice to all the hard work that you have put in. So I'm Sri Rangarajan, and I'm the founder CEO of Dibella India. So we are a manufacturer cum supplier focused on ethical and responsible production. So what it means is it starts with, how our raw material is produced, both in terms of environmental impact and social impact. And for that, we work long time with our farmers, and we give them an assurance that, whatever cotton they produce, and irrespective of the output, that it will be taken or it will be consumed by us, and with the premium which will be decided by their production cost plus certain margin for them. And then we take that cotton through dedicated supply chain, which has a similar value. And then we convert that into a finished product in our facility. So, which is about 2 hours drive from Bangalore, which is in southern part of India. So our factory is situated in a declared disadvantaged region. So what it means is there is not a lot of economic opportunities for the people who are living there, and it has a very low literacy and the income level as well. So a lot of the population there, especially marginalized communities like women and elderly men, they all go to big cities like Chennai or Bangalore and work as housemaids and go through all kind of exploitation. And our idea was to train them for tailoring or for any kind of a work that is required in the garment manufacturing part, and then give them the employment opportunity so that they don't migrate to bigger cities and their livelihood will be better. And the impact of our additional wages that we pay, which our wages are about 30% more than the minimum wage. And the impact of that wage increase is quite significant when they don't migrate and when they live in their own village, because their housing costs are lower, and their general living cost and availability of nutritious food, all that are much better. So that is how we started. So we started with about 270 farmers about 9 years back now. And now we work with 2,700 farmers, and we have about 770 workers in our factory. 91% are women, and all of them come within 6 to 10 kilometers of our factory. And we work with quite a lot of brands in Scandinavia and in Europe as well. That is our customer base, and you will see a lot of details in the video. But for us, when we come to the challenges, it is always as usual. You talk about prices and challenges around price. A lot of there is talk about sustainability in the market, but the impact on the farmers and the intention and the real effort that is required on the ground is hardly being put through by the brand or retailer or any of the stakeholders who are involved. And like Maurice was telling, the key part is how the long-term value-aligned relationship you have is what will result in the impact that we are trying to create. And to get that kind of a relationship has always been a challenge. And then a lot of, in the market now, since sustainability is kind of a new trend, for the past few years, it has been unfortunately taken as a trend. What it means is there's a lot of brands, we do what is minimum required and are not doing bad is considered to be sustainable. And then for us, we go from raw material till, living wage, and how do us compete with other manufacturers or a brand who are doing bare minimum that is required. So that is always a challenge, but there are solutions as well. And thankfully, there are quite a lot of brands and retailers with good intention and good intent, who are sharing the value with us, and we are putting a lot of effort on the ground to ensure that the social and environmental impact that we have targeted, we are reaching there somewhere.
Thank you, Sriranga. So it was in fact Sriranga relationship with Nudie Jeans that helped us to organize the trip and to learn really more. And I know that Sandhya, the Chief Sustainability Officer, is actually on the call today, and hopefully she'll share a few words as well, because the strength of the relationship it was mind-blowing. Actually, it was really very similar to the fair trade relationships that I've built in the past. And so to this point about the price, the buying price, well, we know buyers are often not increasing prices, although inflation might be running at 10%. How on earth are manufacturers expected to then invest in sustainability measures? So you know, I'd really like to come on now to Shafiq. You set up Ecotex with well, first with eco sourcing here in London, but then these two great factory units a couple of hours from Dhaka. Could you tell us a little bit about the profile of your manufacturing, who your clients are, and also some of the challenges that you're facing? And perhaps, I think many of us in the room, we're very aware of the turmoil that Bangladesh has been through. So if you could perhaps spend a minute also telling us about, well, a minute isn't enough, is it? But get us up to speed with what's happening in Bangladesh today.
Thank you, Sophia, and I'm really honored to be here with the amazing group of people on the panels. They've achieved so much, and thank you all for being here and the people who are online. So do I have a minute?
No, you have 4 minutes.
I'll try and cramp in 40 minutes into 4 minutes, so I'll speed through things. When you talk about challenges, Bangladesh is synonymous to challenges. You know, from when it was born in 1971 till today, what's happened in the last 1 month. I mean, Bangladesh has faced unbelievable, unsurmountable challenges, and I just have to say right at this moment that I was born there, got to salute the people who've given lives, thousands of them who are injured. They've to get rid of an autocratic, systemic, rotten regime. You know, all of you who are aware of Bangladesh, it's been turmoil. It has been tragic. And we are coming to realize slowly the amount of they're talking about $500 billion of money that's been siphoned out of a poor country. You know, it's unthinkable what has actually happened. It's probably unparalleled in modern history as to what has happened. With that backdrop and the challenges that Bangladesh has, what I have found on the ground is actually incredible heart, humility, and resilience. That what I've seen throughout my years that I've been connected with Bangladesh. I mean, Bangladesh has given Grameen Bank. Bangladesh has given BRAC, which is the world's largest NGO and rated #1. You know, and through that resilience, through all the hardship and the conflicts that we've had, including the mockery of the narrative of progress, that what last 15 years has happened in Bangladesh, you know, is just mind-blowing. But we have been resilient and creating actually one of the world's largest hub for fashion and garments, which has transformed lives of women and children at the bottom. You know, sustainability is a double-edged sword. You know, it's an oxymoron. So you can't have the growth and sustainability. But some of us, you know, like the stories that you're hearing, you know, are globally we are trying to do something that is different and meaningful. So in short, currently the challenges that, without going into too much detail, the challenges that we face as an industry, which actually yesterday the chief of the revolutionary government, and people call it interim government. I find that meaningless because the way the society and is broken, the way all the systems are broken. You know, interim means 3 months, 6 months, 3 years ain't going to change what needs to be done in Bangladesh, you know. So I keep on telling everyone that I meet, including a message, if I can pass to the government, is that it's now or never, and failure is really not an option. Because if you've broken the judiciary, if you've broken the law system, if you've broken the economy, if you've broken the police, if you've broken the army, if you've broken everything that there is, with the narration of development, and all you've done is siphon money out, where the people of Bangladesh will have to pay for next 30 years to get back to ground zero. You know, so so I keep on saying that, listen, someone's got to, now we've got a chance. The students have given their life. These young people went there and stood in front and said, shoot me, because they wanted non-discriminatory measures in terms of employment, and that morphed into in 3 to 4 weeks into one slogan that, listen, you are an autocrat, you've got to actually leave now. And she had to flee because the young people in the army also actually decided on July the 20th, they sent an open letter that was not published in Bangladesh, but was published internationally. The young soldiers in the army, they said, we are not going to fire on our people. That was a significant thing because they realized that, this business as usual can't go on, So for us as an industry, and what the chief advisor has been talking about yesterday in his second speech, about if we don't protect, the garment industry in Bangladesh, which is 85% of the exports, and the pharmaceutical industries, actually the country is going to not be able to get out of this rut. So the challenges that I face, that we are looking at, that we are facing now, is one is law and order situation, because a month ago and now is completely different. The second thing that we think is the customer's confidence in Bangladesh, whether it's going to be able to manage to go through this turmoil. The third thing I think is the customers commercial buying practices. I'll go into that later in the a second round of discussion as to what's going on, because in a way, I'll touch a little bit on this one. Is we had a wage increase of 56%, okay, for the bottom level. And what we faced was an FOB price increase of about between 5 to 7%. We ended up getting, after a lot of bargaining, 2% from our customers, So that's basically the commercial reality that Bangladesh faces. That's the third one. The fourth one that we are looking at, that I think is really important, is energy security, because basically the country is bankrupt, and we are having to now ask for about $8 billion to bail us out from what we have inherited from the autocracy.
Thank you, Shafiq. And yeah, we pray with all our hearts that it's an incredible country. Unfortunately, Shantu from Swallows has a fever and is unable to join us. But my lovely assistant Poppy is going to show a few garments which are made out of hand-woven, organic cotton that is hand-woven, hand-embroidered, and then hand-tailored in a village with swallows, Bangladesh. Yeah. And you'll see in the film more about the village rural production of swallows. Those who would like to know more, you'll certainly be able to read it in the report too. So I don't know whether this is like a cinema and whether we can kind of dim the lights and then show the video. No. Okay, we will just show the video then. Excellent. We won't dim the lights. Those with false eyelashes on, maybe you could just
Didn't.
Yes. Lovely. So yeah, so this is an 18-minute video. Sorry, to the slide projector. We will unfortunately have to have Shantu talk to us next time. But we will go on to the video. So this video, the idea was very much to collect the embodied, the real grassroots experiences of farmers, workers within fashion supply chains. So I hope that this video will give you that and add colour and wonderful noise to what our eloquent speakers have described to you. Time is running out for our planet, and the fashion industry has a vital role to play in reversing damage to ecosystems, cultures, and economies. I'm Safia Mini, and over 25 years ago, I founded and ran one of the first sustainable fashion brands. I'm going back to India and Bangladesh to visit inspiring suppliers to research best practice and hear from them directly about their progress towards a sustainable future and a just transition for the industry. I visited projects at every level of the supply chain, from farmers and craft producers to giant factories working with major brands, to explore 5 key areas of regenerative practice: low-impact materials, regenerating nature, renewable energy, workers' welfare and women's development, and communities and culture. I started upstream, visiting 2 impressive organic and fair trade cotton initiatives in Rapa, Zaminta India Organics and RDFC, which is a farmer-owned company. Both organisations support farmers by marketing their produce, collecting it from the farm gate for a pre-agreed price, providing drought-resistant GMO-free seeds, giving training and paying a premium that can be reinvested in the farms. Organic farming is radically different to conventional farming. It doesn't rely on fossil fuel-based inputs and promotes biodiversity, soil health and farmer welfare alongside profit.
Coming soon in next January, 450 more members in the organization. They are also certified organic and fair trade. And that is a very important, because all the 3 aspects, economical, social and environmental aspects, it's cover in the policy and the mission of the organization.
Both organisations I visited grow crops to GOTS organic certification using traditional farming methods upgraded with modern know-how. Some of the farmers are gaining regenerative organic certification too. Farmers told me they've recently chosen to spend their organic and fair trade premiums on renewing a local dam, radically reducing water use through drip irrigation, training in wormy-wash compost and natural pesticide making, seed kits for fruit and vegetables, hiring a school teacher, and women's health and empowerment training. Women have traditionally been structurally excluded from leadership and involvement in decision-making on farms. RDFC recruited Mina Bora to be responsible for certification work, training coordination, and women's development and rights. There's about 35 women who are direct members of your organisation.
Yes, directly 38 women farmers involved with our project.
It's very powerful to have you here. You're a great role model to many of the women.
Yes. And also we have decided in board meeting that how we can also select the board member. Next year we will start that work.
Organic cotton is one of the best alternatives we have to fossil fuel-based fibres. I wanted to see how its environmental impact can continue down the supply chain. I visited Sri Santosh, which is a fully vertical operation near Tirupur. They take in raw organic cotton and turn it into finished jersey knitwear items for brands like Continental Clothing and Earth Positive. It's the first LEED Platinum factory in India. It's powered entirely by wind and solar power plants built by the business. I was impressed by their commitment to decarbonisation and the scale of production.
Yeah, we have around 100 tons of organic fabrics here.
And your capacity is 60,000 t-shirts per day?
Yes.
After the harvest, this giant warehouse is completely full of organic cotton from Gujarat. The cotton is cleaned by hand in the blow room. It's then mechanically converted to slivers, drawn and roved before being spun into yarn. The yarn is knitted on circular knitting machines into organic cotton jersey before being taken to the dye unit. Until recently, dyeing has been an extremely polluting process, discharging vast amounts of chemical effluent into waterways. In this factory, different size vats are used to reduce water use, and a state-of-the-art zero discharge treatment plant, or ZDHC, uses reverse osmosis to completely separate the chemicals from the water.
So this is the treated water. This is going back into the factory, 90% of it. 5% is the salts that's being reused, and the rest is going back to the cement factory.
Once dyed, the cloth is taken to a brand new green factory to be turned into finished garments.
We build a LEED platinum green factory, which is built by recycled steel, recycled glass, and recycled materials used inside the factory. And also, this whole campus is 100% rain harvesting system.
The factory environment is spacious. Good natural lighting and eco-friendly climate control make a pleasant working environment. The canteen serves good quality subsidised meals. The factory provides free sanitary napkins for female workers. The spinning mill has a free dormitory for unmarried women, enabling them to live safely away from home. There are plans to build another dormitory for 350 women at the factory this year. From Sri Santosh, I travelled north to visit Sustainably Crafted Clothing. It's a smaller operation, making high-quality woven garments for European brands like Nidhi Jeans and Knowledge Cotton, halfway between Tirupur and Bengaluru. They work mostly with regenerative organic cotton and small amounts of linen, tencel and hemp. They pride themselves on their attention to detail and the quality of their clothing.
Our idea is, how you can make a really good factory that can produce high quality garments and to do it in a responsible way. And for us, sustainability is about how you can create a community that is sustainable. Whether it is the cotton farmers where we support them for their organic farming practices and give them surety of purchase, which is what they want. And or coming to the workers where this work has some meaning in their life and they can live with certain dignity in their own place. They don't have to migrate and go through all kind of exploitation or low or poor livelihood, let us say.
SCC has deep relationships with their suppliers to ensure the highest social and environmental practices throughout their supply chain. Their regenerative organic cotton is grown by Chetna Organics. This is a pioneering farmer-owned company similar to RDFC. In their factory, SCC have strong and effective social initiatives. They provide free buses to bring people to work. They have a medical centre for workers, excellent meals in the canteen, and subsidise a local school and library for workers' children. They are also working to address structural inequalities and empower female workers, insisting on paying their wages directly into their own bank accounts and running training to give them skills and confidence to step up into supervisory and managerial roles. I was impressed by the work of these pioneering factories, but I also wanted to see more traditional methods of production. Local craft producers often have low carbon footprint, make use of plentiful, local, low-impact materials, generate livelihoods in rural areas, and strengthen communities and culture. At the same time, they can produce unique and beautiful products that people can treasure and pass on. In Bengaluru, I visited an eco-store called Go Native. It sells sustainable fashion created by Indian designers made with traditional craft techniques. Some of the pieces use organic colour cotton, which is indigenous to India. It's a purely rain-fed crop that has a high tolerance for disease and pests and requires minimal investment. I went to Kutch to see how this cotton is produced and used. Kutch has been the centre for colour cotton production for 5,000 years. It's still spun by hand by women in the area. I went to a village called Arakana where the women showed me how it's done. It's very much a communal activity and an important part of cultural life in the village. 95-year-old Gajaraba told me how she's been spinning since before independence. There are also some simple yarn spinning machines which some women choose to use to increase productivity, whilst others do hand embroidery for various craft organisations in the region. The yarn the women produce is bought by Cameo Crafts. I visited them in their workshop and showroom in Bhuj.
So this cotton, colour cotton, this is actually 5,000 years old. This is the indigenous cotton of India.
Yes. And this is the short staple cotton, so it will not be a finer thread. 20 to 24 counts yarn. As you wash, it's become a softer and lighter.
You're collecting and then spinning about 750 kilos of yarn each month, and then some you're selling as cotton to other people, and some of them you're converting here. You're hand weaving it into fabrics, and then also adjunct printing, which is a natural printing process. Khmer Craft sells their beautiful hand-woven, hand-printed fabrics to designers, and also turns them into finished garments which they sell in their shop and online. I was heading now from India to Bangladesh to see one of the largest pioneering factories in the country, but first I wanted to visit Tanapara Swallows near Rajshahi to see an example of a craft-based company that works with international buyers. Tanapara Swallows makes beautiful high-quality clothing and home textiles. It's a low-impact operation that offers a woman-friendly environment and pays living wages to local artisans. It runs development programs through its NGO to promote literacy, education, health and women's rights, and runs a small school and creche for artisans' children. Shanti, tell me about the history of Tanapara Swallows. Why did it start?
In 1971, 13th April, we had a big massacre happened by the Pakistani army and killed more than 200 people from our village. The village was known as the Widow Village. From there is an organization called the Swallows in Sweden. They came to here and started giving the income opportunities for the widow women from this village.
Swallows are a sustainable fashion pioneer. I worked with them for many years, and we discovered together how to adapt their traditional craft skills for the Japanese and Western markets. They work with organic cotton, weaving it on hand looms before tailoring it into quality garments. They specialize in hand embroidery, making it possible to add unique designs to smaller orders. They can offer low-impact natural dyeing if required, and are experienced in working with international buyers to develop products. I asked Lena, the head of the embroidery section, what motivates her and her vision for the future.
She's saying she can represent her work through Swallows into the international market. So for that reason, she feels so proud to be here. Her main vision is doing more design in different states, of course keeping the traditional skill and showcasing it into the international market, so that Swallows can get more order and more work can be given to the producers.
I was coming to the end of my journey, but before leaving Bangladesh, I wanted to see a large factory to compare it to those I'd seen in India. High production volumes, fast lead times and low labour costs have made Bangladesh an attractive destination for fashion buyers. I went to Gazipur to visit Ecotex, a business that aims to produce clothing responsibly for larger brands. So Shafiq, tell me a bit about Ecotex.
Well, this is a company that was established in 2008. We make fabric, especially jersey fabric, which is called circular knitted fabrics. We dye the fabric, we finish the fabric, and we cut and we make. We also do printing, we also do denim, we also do outerwear. We work with H&M, we work with New Look, we work with Mango, we work with Primark, we work with Varna.
I was impressed by the care and concern that the senior leadership team displayed for their workers, with how seriously they work to mitigate the environmental impact of their business, and that big brands are placing some of their orders with factories like this. They are currently replacing their existing dieffluent treatment plant with a £5 million ZDHC, the first of its kind in Bangladesh. Rooftop solar panels provide 20% of their daytime energy. This will soon increase to 50% with the installation of solar wall panels. Waste heat from gas dryers is recovered and fed back into the drying machines to reduce energy use. Ecotex has a zero-tolerance policy towards sexual harassment. In addition to good wages,
employees benefit from production bonuses, free health insurance and healthcare, a creche, female supervisor and gender equality training, a discounted shop for food and basic necessities, and paid maternity and paternity leave. The factory provides free meals and snacks to workers during their shifts. The canteen serves 18,000 workers on 15-minute meal settings. 3 tons of rice are steamed each day. So the new mantra around sustainability is that sustainability is doing less harm, but that isn't good enough. That we need to build a more regenerative fashion industry, one that's doing good.
We are welded together in this catastrophic future that has been projected, you know. It's no longer a story, it's happening. Fashion is polluting. Fashion emits a lot of greenhouse gas. We've got to come together to be able to do something seriously about it, you know. It can't be lip service, you know. It can't be, we'll do it tomorrow.
If we cast out maybe just 5 years.
My vision in terms of sustainability is to be carbon neutral by 5 years.
I've been hugely impressed and inspired by the extraordinary people I've met on my journey. There's so much knowledge and passion there to be drawn on. There's no shortage of solutions for environmental and social innovation. Time is short. All of us in the textile and fashion industry need to get behind pioneering practice to help regenerate nature and build a just transition for all. You've experienced some of the very real colour, the context of these issues, and I think what was surprising to some of us when we started kind of looking at the film and sharing it with people in the industry is that whilst some people do know a lot about fashion supply chains, actually there are a lot of people working in the fashion industry that don't really understand fashion's supply chains. And when we talk about fashion's greenhouse gas emissions, 90% of those are in the supply chain for scope 3. So that is the key that we need to turn. And I think it was the Middlesex University team, the access funding. It was a really, really helpful thing, but you can appreciate also it was a relatively small scope. So we haven't gone into, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us. We haven't gone into all of the variations of wonderful low impact materials. We've picked organic, regenerative, fair trade cotton because that represents one that we feel is very, very significant and important. So we do appreciate that there are limitations with our scope due to the size of funding and time. But all of my colleagues here made huge efforts to resource this and to put this together with data that was really qualitative. I believe it's useful. So with that, I'd like to come into second session. I think let's assume that the good practices that have been shared in the video that everyone's mindful of, and that perhaps we could move to discussing what are the challenges in scaling some of those practices. And we still have our colleagues, Shailesh from RDFC, I'm hoping, and also Sriranga, who's in Berlin from Debella and Sustainably Crafted Clothing. So that's so I wonder if we could perhaps come to
Shailesh first, very, very briefly. What do you think, Shailesh? Oh, sorry, maybe this is too quick technically. Shailesh, if you were there, what would make the difference? Because you told me, for example, that a large proportion of your cotton, something like 40% of your cotton, ends up being sold not as organic, regenerative, fair trade cotton. It ends up being sold as conventional cotton because buyers are not giving you the commitment in time enough. What do you need to see change? Is it public awareness? Is it industry awareness? What's needed so that your farmers, you said in the report, you said, all we need is to have people buy organic, regenerative, fair trade cotton. That's all you need. You don't need anything else. But why are we stuck? Why don't we have that? If you could just give us 2 minutes answer.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Safia. Actually, in the process, if you understand that the cotton is grown in a particular season between means that sowing season we have in June, July, and harvesting will be start from October to in between February. So after the harvesting the cotton, we have to make store based on the requirement from the market. So as a SPO means we are small producer organizations, and if we have a commitment from the customer with some means help for the firm commitment, then we can only make the means or make an inventory for them. So currently there is a some of the customers like brand fashions, they are supporting us. There is a German brand. So they are supporting to means give the commitment, but there is a additional cotton which is we have in a stock during the year, and there is a no commitment from the market, and we can't store during the year means all the year. So if there is no means commitment from the customer, and we can't hold that stock in our premises, so that is a big challenge for us to sell under whatever the sustainable cotton we produce. We can't sell in a same supply chain, but we compulsory has to sell under the conventional because of kind of this issue. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. So, I mean, it just sounds incredibly frustrating, doesn't it? I mean, the brand that I ran, we would make that commitment, 18 months before. So when the farmers were sowing, then they knew they had the commitment to that purchase, and it's not impossible to do. It's lovely to hear that Brand Fashion, for example, this German brand, are doing that, giving you the long-term commitment. And they've also, I think, brought ODA in so that you've been able to put through about 500 additional farmers through the fair trade scheme. So again, bringing the benefits to even more farmers. Thank you for that, Shailesh. I just want to move now to Sriranga. I know that obviously you're very involved as a director, board member at Chetna Organics. So of course you understand farming inside out. Also, I believe your father and grandfather were cotton farmers, so you experienced this. But I'd like to come to the manufacture side. You have this very deep partnership with Nudie Jeans, with Knowledge Cotton. What makes the relationship so special with them? How have they been able to plan, give regular orders, consistent orders? Why don't they negotiate so hard on price? And what kinds of new customers would you actually like to see so that you can build more orders for farmers and you can employ more people in the surrounding villages?
Yeah, thanks, Safia. But I just wanted to say that yes, we do have a deep, relationship and understanding. That doesn't mean the negotiations are not hard. But but here, the fundamental requirement, I think Maurice has touched on his introduction as well. Actually, what is required is actually the long-term partnership built on, aligned values and trust. That cannot happen, and that can be the only solution. If at all we have to look for a silver bullet, then that will be it, because the destruction is not caused in 1 month or 1 year. in the mistrust and destruction in the industry, whether it is through the environment, to the marginalized community, whether it's a small scale farmers or workers. It has happened over a period of time when the business practices are not good. So when the destructions had happened over a period of time, and solution cannot happen quickly, and there is no quick solution as well. So first and foremost requirement will be, our fundamental need for the industry to turn their head, or for a quick to find solution, is how you can build long-term relationship based on value alignment, and then there is a common goal. Then all the discussions and negotiation that we are talking about, that is because we do have a common goal, which is farmers and workers' interest is protected, and that is shared value between Nudigenes and us, and knowledge partner, whoever the brand that we are working with, especially with Nudi's team. It is fantastic because that is non-negotiable. Workers and farmers' interest is non-negotiable, and rest are all, yes, of course, they have to compete in the market that is conventional market. So we can't say that they have to totally change their business practice or way of working. Then they go, then they won't be doing well, and if they don't do well, we don't do well, and if we don't do well, the farmers don't do well. So it defeats the whole purpose. So everything depends on how we are building the long-term relationship that is based on mutual trust and aligned values, and that is what we look for when we start some new relationship. And that is what, when the farmers know that actually whatever cotton they produce will be procured, like that's the point Shailesh was telling as well, because their output cycle is only for 1 month, from November till January, they have to sell the cotton. But whereas the consumption happens throughout the year. And who solves that problem of, because farmers cannot afford on their own to hold beyond that 3 months, because they don't have the capital or resources to do that. Whereas for the brand, it's very difficult to predict, and 1.5 year back, 2 year back, and make commitment. It is the linking in between, which is the supply chain partners, whether it is a garment manufacturer or a spinner or a weaver, how they can actually do that part or effectively do that. And if they have to do, if somebody like a supplier like us have to do, then we need to have the trust with the our customer will be with us. They won't be moving away for 5 cents and 10 cents, and unless of course the service and quality, we have to do that. But if that is done, service and quality is kept, then we will not lose the business. That level of trust should be there, and that is what we look with the new customers as well. And that is where we really value somebody like Nudigenes, who are, we know, of course, we have challenges in quality sometimes, and prices. There will be negotiation. Of course, there will be negotiation. It's not that whatever we ask they can give or they can afford, because we all live in a commercial environment where we have to compete in a environment. So we totally understand that. But we have a common value, which is, okay, certain interest has to be protected, and beyond that, we won't go. So that is what we look for the new customers, and that is the kind of relationship, I think, that will solve some of the challenges that we have as well.
So I'm really hearing that value alignment and trust is so important to deliver livelihoods both to farmers and to garment factory workers. And we have a surprise for you. We have Nudigenes Sandhya, who's going to be beamed in. Thank you. So I'd like to know from you, so Nudigenes, favorite brand to many. So when you're negotiating with Debella sustainably crafted clothing, do you're very generous, and there are certain things that are very important to you. Do you have trouble convincing your C-suite, your owners, your merchandiser? How do you overcome those problems? If you wouldn't mind just a 1 minute, 2 minute response.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me, first of all, and hi Ranga. First of all, I just want to echo that what you just said about the long-term relationships, and I think we had very good cooperation for the last, I think, 10 years now. So of course, the long-term relationship and the trust needs to be there. I think for a very successful collaboration. But to your question, and I guess it goes back to a little bit of the founders of the company and their values and so on, and the fact that in where we have, it's true what you said there. It's always a negotiation, of course, and we are not a charity, so obviously we need to be profitable. But I think, we do have that commitment from the owners and the founders and So it's not a question of like convincing them for this purpose to sort of for example, implement living wages in what we did here, but it's also about I mean, making it realistic, of course. I mean, with SSC, we are producing our shirts. It's not the biggest part of our production. We do denim mainly. So it's always, of course, a discussion internally of where we can allocate the money and where we can have projects in that sense. But for the relationship with SSC, it's been going on for quite some time, and we also have a very good track record, as I would say, of different projects, and both within living wages, but also in terms of trainings and other projects that we are engaged in, and especially also for the farmers. I think it's really important to have both the fair trade and organic, and now moving into the regenerative organic cotton field.
Thank you so much, Sandai. And I think, you know, in the report, it also mentions how you and other brands from sustainably crafted clothing were also very, you know, active and proactive, I should say, in COVID, for example, in supplying vaccines and ambulance support to classrooms, etc., etc. You know, really practicing deep listening as a buyer with a manufacturer is not something that we often hear, but, you know, this is certainly something that we could say is generating this very positive partnership. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it, and all of your cooperation with the research. So coming back to Marius, you've been working in an environment where, well, I mean, I would like to know, you're competing against the Fruits of the Loom and various other t-shirt offers, and yet there you have a factory-based product that is organic cotton, that is certified as such. It's also made carbon neutral, etc., etc., best possible waste effluent, dieffluent management systems. How do you compete? You're mostly B2B, it's mostly merchandise brands, etc., etc., who are buying your clothing. But there's no legislation to kind of wrap around this and say, you know, all of that great stuff, the carbon, you know, neutrality and the better fibers and the support to farmers and workers, etc., etc., are reflected in what you do. How are you competing, and what would you like to see so that it's easier for you to compete? Or do you not need to, because you're growing anyway? And right.
Yeah, we're growing. There's definitely a sustained solid growth in demand, undoubtedly, at least for us.
People care, because the end consumer and the buyer care.
We are certainly no longer considered niche, or we are very much there, mainstream.
Good to know.
And the big brands, the Gildens and the Fruits of the Loom and the others, are all now running some kind of a range, few products under a sort of a green, sustainable, whatever label it might be. Usually very badly, because really that's not their business. They don't understand, they don't know, they just want to kind of, muscle in on take a slice of that market, which is demanding transparency, is demanding credibility, and I think those are the keys. And
the demand side management you can actually do as well. So if Billie Eilish has a gig at this city, then the team can get the t-shirts in and printed, and then
yes, of course, yes, of course you need to make it available, you need to make it easy.
But you can do that without wasting a great deal as well. Is that right? Is that how you're able to?
We waste very, very little. In fact, pretty much nothing. And when people talk about fast fashion, when people talk about really short lead times and very quick reactions to market trends, to market demands,
I mean more your business to business.
That's what I mean.
I mean,
this is what we do. We facilitate it to a great extent by holding stock ready to print that can actually be turned into the
Massive.
product in time, the product that is right now required, needed, without overproduction, without missed forecasting. You know, we've got it. We've actually taken that risk, brought in that stock in. You know, we've got warehouses full of T-shirts, and we get orders. You know, this morning we ship it this afternoon, 2 screen printers. They will print tomorrow, and it will be on the shelves on sale for the weekend. You know,
for that particular.
And there is a very, very solid commercial economic sense in doing that. Of course, you can buy this product cheaper in the Far East if you can wait, you know, 3 or 4 months for it to come over. But then, you know, you're guessing what you need. You will either undersell because you've ordered too little, or you will end up with half of it unsold, and then you have to discount, and all your profit is gone, right? If you're playing very closely in that sense, you know, you are maximizing the sales, and okay, maybe your margin is not as big as it would have been if you bought it in China 6 months earlier, but you're keeping all of it. You know, you're maximizing.
This is a really nice response, isn't it?
So
waste as well.
Absolutely, this is to reduce waste and to unlock the potential without actually, you know, a lot of this cost pressure comes from the fact that the brands, the buyers, the retailers are pretty rubbish at actually forecasting and buying the right stuff in the right quantities. There is just so much badly bought merchandise stock around the world that nobody wants, and somebody had to pay for it. So, you know, that waste, of course, is critical. When you say, you know, what, when you asked Ranga and Sandhya, you know, what, I remember, I don't know, you probably remember, and some of you, I'm sure, do, was it 2007, 2008, when there was the first run by DEFRA, the first sustainable roadmap for clothing, fashion? You remember it as well. I remember you from there. And the question was, you know, what to do, how to encourage organic cotton, right? And everybody was talking about it, and, you know, there were various, but I think it came to really to the point that everybody was complaining about this uneven playing field. You know, organic cotton takes on so much responsibility for the people, for the soil, for this and that, and pays the full price for it. And anything below that carries a hidden cost that somebody else is paying. And here we are, 15 years later, facing the same question.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Sad, really.
Yes. I mean, yes, beyond, yes, beyond sad. Shafiq, we spoke about who pays for this transition to green innovation. And I remember you saying that you had borrowed money from the bank at an interest rate, I think you said 12, 14%. And yet there should be some facility to be able to borrow money at 5, 6%, when many of your customers, as we saw from the video, are very large conglomerates, very large corporations. Some of them are even buying land up in Scotland. You know, why are they not creating a fund and investing in the kinds of technology you've just imported, for example, I think from India, DRC, for $5 million US. Can you talk a bit about how do we unlock this piece of finance? Because somehow we have to be able to get money on the table, and it's not fair when manufacturers are receiving less in prices relatively, and being required to invest very heavily in environmental technology, however passionate people like you as CEOs and founders are.
Okay, thank you. Before I forget, and I've got to thank you, Marcus, and your team to make this film. it's not easy. You've gone around, you know, you've done a lot of hard work. So it's an amazing thing that you have done for everyone to see, really.
I'm afraid he dropped his glasses in your effluent processing tank.
It's getting clean.
Sorry.
Okay. I've got to introduce actually who we are. I haven't done that. So it's 4 minutes. We started a company, two of us, my muse, my partner, my someone who enlightens me all my life. I mean, Para Hamilton. We started our company in 1996 in a basement, just two of us. She was the first person actually who spoke to me about organic food, organic cotton back in 88. And I had an engineering background. I went to Bangladesh after my master's. I did 2 years work with the largest anti-poverty organization, BRAC. I came back to do my PhD. I got dislodged and I got into a fashion and garment industry. And she had architectural and arts background and really well invested in environment. So she was the first person who actually spoke to me about wildlife and organic farming. So we started then, I borrowed 350 pounds from a couple of people and we started, and now we've got offices in Turkey, in Bangladesh, in India. We're just signing an agreement with someone in China. In Bangladesh, we've got two factories. One is called Ecotex that you saw the video of, which employs over 19,000 people. We started with 200 people. It's come to 19,000 people in 15 years. We've got another factory which employs 3,000 people, which does true knitwear. So our biggest buyers are American Eagle, so H&M, Sainsbury's, ASOS, New Look, Mango, Zara Man, Bershka, so a few others. I can't remember all of them. But New Look was the organization and company who actually made this happen. Without them, we wouldn't be here because they believed in us 30 years ago and they're still with us. So in terms of short-termism, nothing is going to work. Whether we talk about the climate fund, whether we talk about any business, whether we talk about environment, it's all got to be about partnership. It's all got to be about collaboration. It's got to be about long-termism. Okay, otherwise nothing is going to actually happen. So the issue about the point that you're raising, which I'm thinking about, that if we are to have carbon neutral and proper looking at the ethical side and the climate side, we have to borrow. I mean, we've invested over $200 million in Bangladesh in Ecotex. It's quite a large facility. It produces about 300,000 pieces of garments per day. And we are getting recognized for things that Para and I believed in, and we built up a team to deliver on that. So just want to add a few things. Look, we were the first people to give health insurance for every single worker in our factory. We have extended that to ensure comprehensive insurance for both the parents and two of the children. We provided food from get-go. And I'm going to share with you very quickly a story. In early 90s, I went first to Bangladesh for my first buying trip. Three things really impacted me. One was the decimation of the rivers. It was, I mean, all you saw was black tar in rivers, okay? Second thing was when the workers used to come to the factory with the tiffin carrier, you know, in 90 degrees humidity, 40 degrees temperature, what they were eating, when I looked at that it really, really impacted me. So these two things, I thought to myself, remember speaking to Para in the early 90s, if we ever set up a factory, we're going to have a clean water system and we're going to feed our workers. The third thing was looking at children eking out a living on the municipal dumps. The stench was so horrendous that a half a mile away you would puke. But these kids were actually making out a living from those municipal dumps. So I remember telling Para that, listen, first time we ever make money, this was 1992. First time we ever make money, we're going to do something about those children. So 1999, first time we had 200,000 pounds in the bank. We set up an organization called Children's Hope, which is still running, supported by other fashion organizations and ourselves. What we do for them is actually we provide the total funding for their education and the total healthcare of the entire family. So, and we also have a brand called 90% that does sustainable clothing. We launched it in 2018. Coming back to what Sophia, what you were mentioning, what is important is we remember Rana Plaza. No one should die to produce garments for anybody. But unfortunately, you know, 1,200 people died that day. But and thankfully, it didn't go in vain. A lot of the times, catastrophe happens and goes in vain. But Rana Plaza didn't go in vain. Why? Because of the strategic partnership between the brands, the retailers, and the Garments Association in Bangladesh. They came together. It was well funded, and we have transformed Bangladesh garment industry into the most transparent, one of the most ethical and accountable garment hubs around the globe. A lot of people talk about the negative side of Bangladesh, but we've had a lot of positive things that has actually happened since Rana Plaza. So now about climate change, sustainability, what we need to do is what I was actually sharing with Sphere was that if we can, all these huge conglomerates who buy from Bangladesh, they've done it with Rana Plaza, they just need to do a bit more because we borrow money 10, 12, 13, at times there was 16, 17% we used to pay in Bangladesh to borrow money. If a fund could be created where successful industries who are actually still polluting, still there is a lot of emissions, what can we do together? We could create an actual complete intelligence bank, a little bit of money, and we could actually transform the industry in Bangladesh. So the whole issue about the river, so the pollution of the river. So 15, 16, 17 years ago, when we were planning Ecotex, we couldn't actually afford to have a zero liquid discharge plant, which at that time was costing about $15 million. And we spent $15 million to set up Ecotex at the very beginning, although it has now grown from the income that we've generated. But we are doing it now, it's costing us $5 million, not £5 million, as you said on the film. So it's $5 million. It's a lot of money. So the water is going to be recycled. Okay, we are going to extract the salt through evaporation. Okay, and our sludge from now currently 3 tons is going to go down to about 800 kilograms. So we're going to have drinking water from all our entire all the dyeing processes. We're going to have salt extraction that we're going to reuse. So the whole issue is all these things actually cost money. Nobody in Bangladesh has done this. We did this because not what actually our buyers are telling us. We are doing this to save our rivers, to save our waterways, our aquatic life, you know. So basically, a lot of people are not going to do it because it doesn't make any commercial sense. No buyer is going to come and tell us that, listen, we're going to give you 2 cents per garment because you're doing this. Ain't going to happen. But somehow through our efficiency, we'll have to make sure that we are able to long-term bring this money back. But the most important thing is to save, you know, our planet, to save our rivers. So in a way, it's got to be partnership. It's got to be legislative. It's, I mean, which European Union are doing big time now, actually pushing everybody. But, you know, nothing comes for free.
No.
You know, we are feeding, you know, our people on a daily basis, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's not for free, but what it means to us is we are putting our money where our mouth is. We are doing what we believe in. And actually, we are being recognized by our customers. That's why Niluk are still with us 30 years on. You know, whoever are with us, everyone actually wants to increase their business with us. H&M wants to take the entire factory. Primark wants to take the entire factory, which we can't give. But, you know, but the whole issue is, at the end of the day, it has got to be, you know, strategic partnership. Otherwise, whatever we're talking about, it's not going to make any sense.
Yeah. So I did interview Liz Perkins of the Parallel Impact Institute, who's setting up a 5 trillion fund to look at how funds will be available. And I'm going to distribute that video later to you and to those of you online, because we won't have time to play it. But I think, the input that you gave really helped to motivate me to get to some of where some of these solutions might come from. But I think, watch this space, because I know that there are huge institutions now, IFC and others, who understand that as part of the development debate, as part of an international response to the climate crisis, that these funds need to be found, and they need to be found at an affordable rate. But coming big picture as we have, I would like to ask Sarah, who's been talking big picture, agroecology, organics, to share a little bit about what you learned in Hungary. Just back, aren't you?
Yeah, sure. Yes, I am.
Thank
Hi,
you.
hi everyone. Well, first of all, I'd like to start by saying thank you very much to all of you and for the video. How inspiring is it when you see passion put into action like that, and what is possible? I mean, it's incredible against all of the odds that, it's just really. And it also, so I'm from the Soil Association, and we're a charity that has been around since 1946. And our founders recognized the link between the health of the soil, the health of plants, the health of animals, and the health of people. And everything we've been doing since then is kind of linked to that kind of core mission. So we're involved in things to do with agriculture, but also children's food, hospitals, working with farmers to embed more regenerative practices. But you may have heard of us, most people have heard of us through our work with organic, so organic food and farming and organic certification, and including as a founder member of the Global Organic Textile Standards, which is one of the reasons I'm here today and one of the reasons that we connected. So what Safia just made a reference then to Hungary. So I've just been at the European Organic Congress in Hungary, and just very inspired by the kind of, as you mentioned earlier, the green shoots of what's possible and what's coming in terms of, the tide changing. And I hear you, Marius, you're involved in the early days of GOTS and probably still have the psychological scars from that process.
I think they show.
But so much is shifting, and a lot of it down to the trailblazing work of people like you and people like you and people like you. So there's a few things happening. So I would completely agree with your point that it's not just going to be, it's got to be that kind of interconnected working together, which is ironic because that's also how nature works. But we are seeing a shift in the kind of legislative landscape, and there's a whole range of 3-letter acronyms, or even more than 3-letter acronyms. I could reel off CSDR, EUDR, so lots of different ones that are starting to shift the what businesses can do and what they will be incentivized and rewarded to do. But legislation often happens quite slowly. So we're seeing a lot of private actors as well. So not just in terms of brands, but in terms of private finance. And then there's consumers, there's huge consumer demand for more sustainable products. People are genuinely terrified about the climate crisis. I mean, as we all should be, and want to make purchasing decisions that really reflect their values and reflect the kind of world they want to see. And we're seeing that translated through in the organic market, which despite really straitened times in terms of inflationary pressures, it's still growing. And my colleagues in the certification team gave me the latest figures that they've got for textile sales. And it's 56% increase up to August, for the 12 months to August, on adult clothing. So there's a real demand for organic clothes that's coming through, which is a really, and it's good to hear that that's also, be awkward if that wasn't what you're experiencing, but
Yes.
so that's great. And just another thing about, who's responsible and where the power is. One of the things, I went to a session in Hungary, and it was a man from the commission who's responsible for, I can't remember which DG it was, but it was something to do with carbon and kind of carbon accounting, and how do you put legislation in place to make people do things that are better for soils and store more carbon. And he said something, I can't remember if he was talking about business or consumers, but it was almost off the cuff. It's like, well, of course, that's where, you know, the power is with consumers, or the power is with business. And, you know, I was sitting there thinking, well, the power is with you. You're the regulator. And it just really struck me that we all have this sense that the power is somewhere else, or someone else can decide. And in a way, I think the answer is that we all have some power to some extent. And it is through that working together to figure out where you can bring what power you have and connect it with the power of others. And that kind of is greater than the sum of its parts, again, just like in nature. So yeah, that was one of the biggest things I reflected.
Wow. Gosh. So I suppose there was one other small part. So where does the money come from to scale this activity? And we have some of the answers coming through here. Then the legislative framework that needs to wrap around. Now we've Brexited, of course, you know, great stuff coming through in the EU. We need an EPR, we need a de minimis. We feel Bates Wells, Oliver over there, and myself and a number of other fashion people feel that that would be one way of really stopping the ultra fast fashion coming into the UK in the way that it does, destroying British, I don't mean British, you know, brands and initiatives in the way that it has completely changed the playing field, as it were, and consumers' expectations and consumption of clothes in a very, very formidably bad way. But then there is also, I heard Textile Exchange doing a piece of work now that has finally got funded, which is going to be about LCA studies. And you'll read in the report, Ranga from DeBella had been talking about how, you know, with data about organic cotton, I'm sure you would verify the same, in 2008 from a different region of India, it's not just 20 or 30% out, it can be 300 to 400% out. So when buyers are asking for data with which to build climate plans and to assess going forward, there actually isn't the data that is meaningfully available. So that is now also being done, not available yet. But, and then, of course, there is the bits that we're all involved with, which is creating new narratives about the post-growth or the ecological economics, which is staying in our personal power of simplifying, of promoting local initiatives, greener initiatives, but also being political as well in putting pressure for these new forms, these new structures, this new infrastructure to come into place. I am aware that I totally forgot the beginning of my presentation, but that's okay, you've heard me before. I would like, however, to say that Fashion Declares is running a carbon literacy course on the 20th and 27th Friday. It's an 8-hour course, so if you are involved with the fashion business and one of your jobs is driving climate action plans and sustainability, that is a wonderful course. My colleague Poppy here sitting front row can tell you more about the carbon literacy course, so please do come and see her. It's delivered by myself and Debbie Laffman, who used to be the sustainability lead product developer at Finisterre, so has lots of experience in this area too. But I would like to thank everyone online for joining us. We will have a recording of this up probably by Monday. And thank you very, very much. Oh, questions and answers. I did see some questions about regenerative, organic cotton. So I think we've answered that in the video. Is there any last question, Bates Wells teams, that, oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, please.
Oh, sorry, were you asking people?
No, I'm asking you some questions.
Yeah, I have a question, which is to Shafiq and Maris, which is we need businesses like yours to grow and succeed. But how does that look when it doesn't involve making more stuff? How do you grow without depending on, what did you say, Shafiq, 200,000 pieces a day? that you're making?
250,000.
Could they not just take market share away from the laggards?
No, that's, yeah, but the market share, I mean, you're making for the H&Ms, that how is, I mean, do you have a vision for how you work with your partners to still create good, decent employment, which obviously is really
See,
important?
this is what you know, the dichotomy, the double-edged sword, the oxymoron of sustainability and growth. So, I mean, are people going to have a cultural revolution in the West and not wear fashion? Okay, so it'll probably stem from needs, and then followed, right?
Yeah,
So
too
I mean,
cold.
Huh?
Too cold.
Too cold, you know. So I mean, it's supply and demand. So the other point that you make is that should the business go to people who are wrecking the planet less? Should the business actually go to people who are doing a much better job on all the counts, whether it's climate change, whether it's carbon footprint, whether it's water, whether it's people? I think that's the way it should be, where people who are invested in the planet, in the people, should actually grow and be the businesses of tomorrow. It shouldn't be business as usual, where you go to your least common denominator. And that has got to also happen through, I think, young people challenging brands. And I think that it is absolutely right. Without legislation, nothing's going to happen, because then you don't have accountability. I mean, the thing is, okay, people have power in their pocket, but the whole issue is most people, I shouldn't say that maybe. I think there are businesses will want to get away with what they can. You know, look at Trump. You know, I don't have to pay taxes. I can get away with it. You know, so that's the whole thing. So therefore, the legislation is really important. And I don't know. I mean, we're almost 10 years, 8 years into Brexit, or 7 years, whatever. As a disaster in itself. So I don't know whether we're going to come out of all the legislations the European Union are making. The European Union are making some amazing things on environment. You know, you probably know much better than I do.
On the legislation point, if you would like to join a working group about fashion and legislation and policy, please give your name and address. I'm just going to say, talk to Oliver, and he will take down your detail. There he is. Marius, you wanted to answer the question.
It is a dilemma, because you know that there is overconsumption, that we're probably making too much of this stuff anyway. And yes, market share for sure. I mean, whatever size of them, let the market shrink, but let sustainable practices have a larger share of it. What is important for sure is on the larger scale, what's important is to show that good practice is possible, and it's profitable, and it's workable, and it's commercially feasible and competitive. And you know, at the end of the day, if you have a factory and you're doing the right thing and you're employing 150 people, and then 10 years later you're employing 1,000 people, and you're thinking, you know, my impact is better. You know, there are more people benefiting from it. So yeah, it's a dilemma. It's always, you know, what to do. But on the whole, I think working out, you know, with the best practice, the thing is that it's not that easy. It's not like, yeah, let's do it well and show others. You know, it takes time and it takes effort to actually make it work, practically as well as commercially. But when you do, then others can actually look up and say, they're doing it, you know, why can't we? You know, so
I'll just give a plug for standards in that, because one of the reasons that we have standards and why we think it's an important tool for change is because, you know, you set these minimum requirements that you have to meet if you've got 3 people in the factory or 10,000, and they're really strict. So that's why, you know, in a world of greenwash and the use of the term, including the term regenerative, that can mean so many different things. It can mean the best of the best, or still be associated with the worst of the worst. So having legislative standards or private standards that have something really substantial behind them is really important.
So as we move from sustainability to regenerative, when we're talking about how we regenerate the soils, the ecosystems, the communities involved in making that fiber, in transforming them into fabrics, whether that be hand, as you saw, or in those big machines, looking at paying living wages throughout the different tiers of the supply chain. And there's a lot that needs to be changed. Unfortunately, that isn't the norm. But we do somehow have to go from, and whether the figure is 100 billion or 120 billion or 150 billion garments per year, we do have to shrink it down to perhaps as few as 10 billion garments a year new. But I think that's possible because here you are, despite all the odds,
right.
you are sitting before us with successful businesses. And I'm wearing organic cotton and a secondhand September jacket. We have craft wearers amongst us too. So I think what we can say is it is a big crisis, but there are no shortage of solutions. And it is now about how we scale those solutions. But yeah, absolutely the right question to ask. Yes, at the back, please. If you want to stand up, I'm sorry we don't have a microphone.
Christine Dent from Fashion Evolution. And just to say that this networking and supporting idea is absolutely everybody in the room is taking part of it. But the challenge is that there's also another network which is extremely well networked, which is related to fast fashion. It's not part of that dialogue at the moment. So everything that Fashion Affairs does and Fashion Evolution does and raising awareness and reaching that other side so that we're not talking to ourselves is brilliant. And so I just want to thank you for doing it.
Good.
You mentioned craft actually. I was wondering if people had any thoughts on how we can change the narratives around craft garments. So that perhaps some of the things that seem negative, so the longer time scale, higher price, smaller scale, but how they can be reframed into the positive that they really are for heritage and tradition in the planet.
Well, I think we do need a new narrative around craft, the value addition, but also how low impact those natural materials are, how many livelihoods we can create in the most rural areas amongst the most economically marginalized people. And I think we know that we have Extant, which is a wonderful trade show event, but we do need something like, and I know there's League of Artisans as well, and your lovely festival at Cardi London. We do somehow need a way of bringing everything together to showcase craft as a solution going forward to regenerative practices and fibres.
Just like to add something.
Please.
What's happening now, the whole matter, craft is something very marginal, and the way forward is this large industry. They might be sustainable, but they are large centralized ownership. Can we move to a different model, which is decentralized, owned by the people, owned by the communities, and managed by them, including certification.
I would
certification should also be decentralized.
Yeah.
It should not be gods or not appropriate for me. So how can we move towards that?
Well, maybe that
becomes mainstream rather than on the market.
I think you're absolutely right, Kishore. I think maybe it's a question of, again, a forum around craft, and I really would value a conversation about that.
I was going to offer a sort of a solution within the UK. It's basically lobbying for materials to get geographical indicator certification, like Shetland wool, or if you're lucky, passing legislation to protect Harris tweed. Because we only have 2 protected materials in this country, which is absolutely insane. And there's so much wool. So if all of us collectively lobby or harangue DEFRA, I think we can get somewhere.
It's a very good idea. It's really good. Yes.
Just kind of swinging off the first question in a way, and it might sort of not be sort of the right people to ask, but I think sort of in terms of that whole sort of so many clothing still being made new, and kind of there's so many clothes already in the world to obviously dress people so many times over. Where do you sort of
stand on kind of bringing recycled cloth into sort of factories and things, because there's been a lot of sort of ways forward in terms of materials being and garments being recycled, but there doesn't seem to be that much coming back into the sort of industry as such. Things are being moved away from the whole plastic bottles being recycled, but there still isn't a lot of sort of the garment on garment stuff.
Well, I've actually been trying for at least 6 years to bring out a recycled fibers range, and I failed. And I'm talking about recycled cotton, not recycled polyester. Recycled polyester is not a problem. We've ditched, or we are now no plastic. We don't do any polyesters at all. So it's all cellulose fibers. In terms of our products, so jerseys, there is simply not the technology available yet to be talking about, you know, proper recycling, i.e. back to fiber to be able to spin. There are also numerous problems with traceability of recycled fibers. You know, you get offcuts, you get, it's mostly pre-consumer. Post-consumer is hopeless. And then if you want to start, you know, meeting Ecotech standard, you know, whether it's safe, and you have to do tests and you actually don't know what those offcuts are. And somebody will give you, you know, 20 bales of cotton offcuts or old things, and they will say, oh, it's all cotton. How do you know? You know, so and then purely the fact that, you know, once you shred it, even if it's there is probably a fair amount of pre-consumer waste, and waste really the critical term here. As you know, GRC is all about, you know, what constitutes waste as opposed to byproduct, because people very often kind of try to sneak through and say, well, you know, it's a waste, but it's not. Pre-consumer, there is probably a fair amount, you know, especially from spinning, that could be turned back to fiber and spun. But the fibers are just so short. Denim, I think there should be plenty of recycled cotton denim and heavy, you know, heavy canvases and wovens. Not hosiery. We just don't have the technology for it yet. I can do 20%, 15%, nowhere near 100%. No, 50% and over, it gets really difficult.
I'm going to ask us to close now and to enjoy some refreshments. But if those of you who wouldn't mind to come forward and we take a quick photograph. Max, do you mind taking a photograph? Is that okay?